Robin Richards?
Yeah, I am.
I'm sorry, I'm not meaning to be creepy. I'm Hans, by the way.
Hans.
You can call me Hans Booby. I am also happen to be your biggest fan. If you would like to do me the honors.
Sure.
Just write to Hans.
She wants me to go to a farm in Sweden.
I don't think you should go.
I have to go.
You're looking a little bit damaged. Would you like some fika? That is coffee and buns.
Sure.
Hi, welcome to Sinister Inclinations. With me today, we've got Terry Sherwood, as usual. We have Andrea Winter and Patrick von Barkenberg from who've recently completed a film called Blood Paradise. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
First of all, let's talk about you guys in terms of where you grew up, what your influences were, that sort of thing. Film-wise.
You can start.
Well, yeah. So I grew up in Sweden in a small town. It's actually actually in the countryside. It's the town you see in the movie. So there was not much to do but making up stories about your family members up there.
Okay. All right. And were there any films that really influenced you? When it came down to writing with Patrick this screenplay, was there anything you had in mind particularly?
We watched a lot of Brian De Palma before we decided to write the script. Mm-hmm. We also watched a lot of Hitchcock and Kubrick, Polanski. It's kind of like, I mean, our movie is kind of a mix of all that in its own way, of course. I mean, these are great filmmakers. We cannot compare ourselves to them, but we got very inspired by all of them.
And you can kind of see those influences in some of the not just the shots, but in the story structure as well. So
I was curious. You mentioned Roman Polanski. What pictures of Roman Polanski did you watch? Did you watch his whole catalog, or did you have a particular...
Oh yeah, sorry.
Go ahead.
We watched every single one of his movies. We both are definitely fans of his work, and one of the one that's really dear to us in terms of atmosphere is actually shot by Sven Nykvist, who used to be Ingmar Bergman's cinematographer, and that's The Tenant, which was shot in Paris, I think in the late 70s, but that might be wrong. But that's one of those incredible movies that really plays with strange atmosphere, mixing humor, tragedy, drama. It has just its own tone. It's its own world. And I mean, we love Rosemary's Baby as well, obviously, and Chinatown and anything in between. But the Tenant was kind of like one of those things that it's kind of like
especially for this film, like when it comes to inspiration, for sure.
Just atmosphere, you know. You just don't know where you're at, but you want to go there.
Yeah, I saw some influences of Repulsion in your picture too, as well. Like
I'll take that as a compliment then.
Yeah, Polanski's a genius, albeit some people will say twisted, and he has his own troubles, but he does well when he writes and does film.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Repulsion. I mean, actually, we didn't. We saw Repulsion. I think one of the first movies we ever saw together as a couple on a date was Repulsion.
Yeah, that's true.
It didn't become an influence for us on this movie, but maybe it stuck.
Yeah.
So did you walk down the hall and have hands come out at you? And
You know, for the next one, we might rip that scene off. But you know, I mean, it's Catherine Deneuve, isn't it? I mean, it's a great movie. I'm actually going to watch that later tonight. It's fantastic.
Well, so you're obviously a romantic.
Obviously.
In his own way. In his own way.
So, Blood Paradise. When you began to write it, what was your process with that? Did you both sit down at a computer and go, "Oh, this would be awesome," or?
Do you want the whole long story, or do you just want the short answer?
I have no life. Go ahead.
The genesis.
We originally went to Sweden to make a completely different movie before this production. Obviously, the year before we had written kind of a murder mystery that we intended to shoot there the year after, and we realized that due to time and money constraints, we could not make that picture when we were going to do it. So we were like, what can we do with the locations we already have, with the amazing actors that we already found, on a very, very small scale? And Andrea very much kind of was the driving force in the writing situations. It's just saying, let's just do something confined. Going back to The Tenant, it kind of happens in one apartment building, doing something on a farm.
What we were thinking is that I wanted to do something that was foolproof, that if something went wrong, it was always like some other person there that could maybe act in their place, or if somebody couldn't speak English properly, that we could just find somebody else in the family and shove them in there. Because when you make a movie, you take so many risks, and since this is our first feature and we wanted to make a bigger one, I was like, I don't want anything to go wrong in this film. I want to make sure that we have a B plan, a C plan, a D plan if something goes wrong. So we wrote the script kind of accordingly.
To what we had in front of us.
Yeah, exactly.
Meaning we knew the locations that we had.
We knew we could stay there for a long time. We knew that we were not going to be pressured.
And we also knew kind of like the world and the tone we wanted to create, which we are so happy that you guys actually enjoyed the movie, because especially in America, it's sometimes very hard to mix genres in the way we did. And some people don't necessarily think of this as like
a pure horror. I mean, it is a horror film, and we see it as a horror film, but it's also kind of
a dark comedy.
A dark comedy, which a very dark comedy in a way.
Yeah, well, so I appreciate the idea. I mean, obviously, you've got very few interiors.
Yeah.
And you've got nature as your exterior. So, I mean, that was a very wise choice,
Yeah, the thing was, I mean, in terms of process writing this thing was like, what kind of locations do we have? What kind of characters can we get? What is the world we want to achieve? And we kind of go from there. So we wrote it in, I think, 2 to 3 weeks, very quickly. And then I was going to shoot it on the C300 Mark II myself. And a cinematographer, going back to the cinematographer we talked to earlier, a cinematographer we know from the commercial world insisted that we cannot make a movie without him. And he brought in basically his team and his gear into the equation and made it look incredible.
Yeah.
As you were saying earlier, you had budget constraints and that sort of thing, and it looks beautiful.
Yeah, and
it looks more professional than most indie productions you're going to find out there.
Yeah, I would say that. Sorry to interrupt here. You were talking about process, and you were talking about using available scenes and people and things. One of the things that really struck me was that there was no bad acting in it. Like for indie films, often you get people that can't, not much familiar with being on camera, how to deliver dialogue. and even the scenes, like particularly the first scene I think was in the boat. I think it was on the pier when you're talking, Andrea, with regards to going to the farm and getting the advice to go to the farm and everything. That was so incredibly naturalistic that it just pulled off. I'm going like, wow, this is some good handling here. There's something to this, and it pulled you in.
Yeah, I couldn't think of a performance that didn't ring true.
Yeah.
I thought the driver. I love the driver because and the choice of the farmer too. Growing up in Canada, in the area we're in, there's a lot of farmers, and I've met that guy. Perhaps not to the extreme.
Can we tell them?
So much.
Do you guys know who the farmer is? Do you want to tell them?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
That's Andrea's father.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, who's never acted in his life before. That's his first on-screen performance.
And
bring him in.
I'm so happy that you guys think that way about the acting, because it's very hard for me. I mean, deep down, I know the acting is great in our film, but for me, it's very hard because I'm watching my dad, and the woman with the long hair is my mother. So it's very hard for me to judge their performance. I mean, I know that they're great, but it's also very tough to judge your family members on screen. And I'm sure it's tough for them to see me as well, because it's too
I'm
close.
sure it was probably difficult for Patrick to direct them too.
Yeah.
But by the way, it was even more difficult to direct the scene wearing a latex suit. And
Yeah.
and the only reason why I'm doing this, because I can not stress this enough. I'm not an actor, and I don't have any dreams of ever becoming one. But trying to get any professional actor into Mallorca, Spain, at 35 degrees weather and wearing this latex suit without any air condition was literally impossible. I would not put anybody through this, and so I ended up playing that role. But
I mean,
again, I hope next time we can get somebody who's a little bit more enthusiastic and capable. I took one for the team on this one.
A lot of talcum powder and a lot of talcum powder and pouring the leg out afterwards, right? Like it.
I should write a book about this experience.
Why not?
That scene just absolutely killed me. I'm going absolutely. I'm going this. Okay, we're watching this, and then. Whoa, okay, we're away to the races. This is interesting.
Well, you'd actually have some interesting stories to tell for the extras on the Blu-ray. So
yeah.
You want, if you see the extras that didn't make it into the cut. I mean, the original cut of this movie was long, 3 hours long. There's a lot of stuff that I'm looking forward to putting on the Blu-ray. We literally cut out 3 of our favorite scenes. Didn't make it into the movie because it kind of messed up the tone a little bit. It was a little too sexual or too violent because, going back to the tone, it's like cozy and creepy versus really kind of just alienating your audience to a certain kind of degree. And those scenes that are hopefully going to go on the Blu-ray eventually, they would alienate the audience within our world, I think.
Well, it's just like, I don't think the audience per se, but it's just like when you make a film, I believe that you can, when you go from one place to another, like in our film, we're first in Spain and then we're going to Sweden, and then you can break the tone a little bit because you're going to a new place. The tone can shift a little bit or a lot, but it still has to feel like the same movie, but you can't suddenly just break the tone where you are. And the scenes that we cut out, they're very sexual and violent in nature, and when we were in Sweden it just didn't fit anymore. It was just too much sex for the Swedish part. But we hope they're going to be on the Blu-ray. Who knows? I mean,
the American market would have no problems.
Yeah.
So
degenerates.
I would really enjoy. I'd love to see a director's cut.
Yeah, I'm going to interject here a little bit. With regards, you talked about look of the film, and who picked the wardrobe? Because the wardrobe was absolutely gorgeous for everybody. I mean,
the two of us.
The look, the feel, the way these garments fell when you walked, like this was really cool stuff. Good color.
Oh, thank
whose
you.
idea? Like, who picked your clothes, Andrea? Like, I know you were, supposed to be the out of place, fashionable woman in this rural setting, and but just amazing, very tasteful stuff. Who picked that? They got good ideas.
It's actually funny because most of my wardrobe was authentic 70s and 60s clothes from my grandmother that I found actually on the farm in the attic. So I just kind of, it was the year before, I think I actually found for sure, the year before, my dad and his girlfriend told me there's all these amazing outfits up in the attic, and I'm like, what? I didn't even know there was an attic in the house. So then there was like this little stairway up, and I just walked in there, and it was a showroom. You can't believe it. It was just like, my grandma was so cool. She was like the coolest woman I've ever met. And I looked at the clothes and I'm like, who was she? Like, because I've only seen her as grandma, right? So I just kind of saw a palette there, and I picked out some really cool jackets, and then I just kind of bought some extra stuff. But it started with her stuff, like the real authentic old. And that also set the tone for kind of the outfit of the boy toy that Patrick was forced to play as well, because he had to wear something that would go along with that kind of like vintage cool vibe that we had. And then Patrick did a lot of the work. We did custom design together, so he helped a lot with the guy's outfit, like how the farmer was going to look like, and the driver, and you had a very clear picture of how you wanted that to look like.
Yeah, I mean, we were extremely inspired by Hitchcock, and again, De Palma. The color development was very much De Palma and Hitchcock.
Yeah.
Yeah, you may think I was slightly crazy, but when I saw you in some of those outfits in the rural setting, I thought Marianne Faithfull, Anita Pallenberg. That's these people. I thought like that. Like, well, there's a shtick that's going on here, and this looks like urban decadence. Walking. You're going through all this.
That's amazing. I like that, urban decadence walking.
Oh yeah.
You can put that on the DVD cover.
Yeah.
I will.
That's the sequel.
Yeah.
No, the sequel is actually Booby's Spawn.
Oh, Booby's
Baby. Whatever happens to be Booby's baby.
So you've got the script. You've got actors in mind. So pre-production, I presume, was fairly. You had the locations. I guess it was just a matter of basically scheduling once your DP was in place. And,
well, we actually tried to talk. The DP is a kind of accomplished cinematographer from the commercial world who's a little bit older than us, and we actually tried to talk him out of being part of the movie for about 2 weeks, because we knew it was going to be the hardest shoot he's ever been on and the longest hours he'd ever go through. And I remember both of us calling him from Los Angeles, like, you don't know what you're getting yourself into making this picture, because it's a small independent picture, right? So he insisted that he wanted to be part of it, and obviously did an incredible job, but I don't know if he's ever going to make a feature with us after this again, with us ever again.
He's already made his next feature now, and I'm sure he's shooting a third, but
with us, I don't know.
I think he'll think twice before he does it with us again.
So how long was the shoot? How many days?
2 weeks in Sweden, and
no, I think it was 19 days.
19 days in Sweden.
In Sweden, and then I think we did 3 to 5 days more or less in Spain.
Yeah, it was 5. We were there for 5 days, but we shot for 3.
Yeah.
In Spain.
Yeah.
Did you revise as you went along? Did you shoot stuff and go, that didn't work, or hey, let's try this?
Yes.
We got something different here.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
All the time.
And actually, the thing is, like, we were surprised how many scenes that were actually rewritten as we were shooting too. It was, we did not sleep literally for, a
3
month.
weeks, yeah.
Because every night I remember sitting up at like 4 a.m. and I'm like, how come I'm still awake, trying to figure out how we're gonna do this scene tomorrow. But the biggest problem was that we had so much exterior, and at night the mosquitoes came, and it was basically impossible to shoot like around mosquitoes, and we had not, like, that was one thing that just we did not calculate.
We were talking about it, but we didn't know how bad it was going to be, especially for the sound, since they're swarming the microphones.
Everything. I mean, for the crew, I mean, it's not possible to be outside. You cannot even stand there. Like, after, like, you know.
But you guys have mosquitoes in Canada too, I assume. A lot.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
So
We got them.
quadruple that in the north of Sweden. I mean, it's unbelievable amounts.
We have, I think there's only one exterior night scene in the movie, and it is the outhouse. And like every take in that scene, I'm literally screaming before and after if we're shooting. Like, you know, like when they say, like, you know, when they put the, what is it called?
Clapperboard.
Yeah, it's like before that I'm like scratching my legs and I'm like swearing and I'm super pissed, and then suddenly, like, you know, we're going and I'm like quiet sitting there, but I'm getting bitten like all over my body, everywhere. I mean, it's ridiculous. So
yeah,
but also
that would probably be horrendous for that final sequence.
yeah, oh my gosh.
Yeah. No.
But there's
That was
also
a
like
question. That was a question I had too about when you were walking naked through that field. Were the mosquitoes there too after your clothes were stolen, and you're walking back from the river?
Yeah, so like that was the thing. Like that was as long as the sun is up, which we shot this movie also during the like one of the brightest months in Sweden, as you know, probably in Canada too. The sun sets very late up there. And it was only when the sun set when the mosquitoes came. So we could only shoot the scenes outside when the sun was shining, because otherwise we would be all like eaten up, basically. So no mosquitoes then, thank God. Otherwise I could never have done it, probably.
Was it cold? What time of day did you do that scene when you were walking up from the river? You did the swimming scene and you walk up. Was that?
I want to say that was actually the sun. I mean, the sun doesn't really go. It was probably
No. There was like, well,
when you're running up the field, you
that
mean?
was in the afternoon.
Yeah, that one when you're running up.
Yeah.
After your clothes got stolen, you went for the swim, and then your clothes get stolen. Yeah.
Probably afternoon.
It was afternoon.
That was the first. Actually, that whole scene. That was the first day of shooting. I remember, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, going down to the lake and then running back up. Yeah, that was our first day. We just thought we'd give the crew a good show.
I was like, I'm gonna be nude a lot. That was because it was the first in the entire movie. And I was like, I'm gonna be nude a lot in this film, so let's just do it now, so everybody's seen everything there is to see, and then we can all focus. So we just did that.
And it was also quite easy because there was no dialogue in that scene, so we didn't have to deal with like wiring up too many actors. It was just kind of like, I mean, again, there's a lot of hiking involved, you know, like even with a small crew going up into the middle of nowhere, crossing a field and going down to a lake. And I mean, one thing that her brother actually did, who's an amazing carpenter, he built us these handmade dolly rigs where we could literally put dolly rails into the forest, which are incredible. They should be patented eventually. And so we could actually put like these little dolly rigs all over the forest and have
he did such a good
beautiful
job
dolly shots.
Yeah.
And sadly, you know, we had a much longer cut in the movie where literally, like, you know, there's a 10-minute walking shot through this incredible field of her. And Andrea, as a producer, made me cut it out completely. There's a lot of beautiful nature shots in this movie that didn't make it into the final cut.
Wow. Yeah. Well, hopefully in the director's cut, we'll see some of that. That would be.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I've got to ask one more thing about that scene, and I promise, you know, is it unnerving to do that kind of a scene? That kind of a scene when you are exposed like that? How does one get yourself into that kind of a frame of mind to do this?
You're asking me, right?
From both ends of things, from being in front and in back of the camera. You know, how do you do that and not appear, you know, that this is not what I want to be doing?
I think the funny thing is, like, I've you know, I say this all the time because I'm Swedish, but I think in Sweden nudity is very natural. So I've grown up like being, you know, people go to the sauna together, like families or friends, and it's not a big deal. And I think in Germany too, it's very similar. And
it's worse.
Yeah, it's even worse in Germany almost. Like we just walked by a park and there was like, I think 20 naked people lying there today. And I'm
True
just
story.
like, this is actually worse.
And it's not that warm.
Yeah, I'm like, this is wow. So nudity has never been a problem for me, and working in front of the camera has kind of just like made me like, I don't really care.
Yeah, well, you've been a model for a while as well.
Yeah, and I started modeling when I was 17, and I did a lot of nude stuff when I was like 18, like, you know, like artsy, beautiful fashion stuff, but like I'm just used to being naked on camera, so that was not hard. But of course it's a little bit different when you're also, the weird thing for me was not the undressing part and getting into the water and all that. Like running is of course a little bit awkward because I was like, how am I gonna, of course, would I cover myself? I would naturally cover myself, you know, but like, of course it is a bizarre feeling running across a field naked, however, and you know, but I used it for the acting. I was like, this is a weird situation, I'm just gonna use it for my character.
I think the strangest thing was her grandmother lives in the house next door. So the main thing was, I was like, is grandmother gonna see all this, me running naked across the field? That was always the main concern. Is grandmother gonna walk in on something that's extremely depraved?
Because that was the only thing I cared about. And I was just like, but then again, I don't think she cares, because like that's what I said. It's like Swedish people don't. My grandma would probably have like, there she goes, like, okay, that's just another day. Like,
just another day in Sweden.
Yeah, I don't know.
Coming over for tea and cake. Hi.
Yeah, no, Terry and I could relate because we were, you know, minor porn stars back in the early 70s. In the greater part of Western Canada.
Tell me more.
But no, it's a
fate worse than death.
Yeah, no, in Canada we still have a little bit of that British sensibility in our society, you know, where it's, you know, people are a little more body conscious here.
Yes.
Oh, is it? I always thought you Canadians were wild and free.
We are, but we're polite about it for some reason. And let's cruise back to the film here. First scene you did was that, so that answered one of my questions. When you were preparing for this, what sort of prep did you do? Story-wise, filmmaking-wise, did you have to go deep into yourselves to pull this story out, or did it just kind of flow?
It totally floated. This one, I mean, this is something that we're just fans of the genre, and I think we were just kind of ready to make this movie at the time it was made. It came, the pre-production part, writing part, and production part came very, very smooth and easy.
I think it goes back to when you do something, when you write a story about a place that you know and people you know, it makes it easier, because then you kind of know what you can get and what you can't get. If you write a story from scratch and a new place that doesn't exist in your world yet, it's so much harder to make up that place. Like when I was writing it, and Patrick has been there a lot too, so even when we were writing it together, like we could see like, oh, she lives in that house, she walks there, that's where he keeps her, we know this actor, he can pull this off, like, so we would like write it for people and for locations. And for me, in my experience, because we've been writing together for 6 years before this, and we've had a lot of problems and like trying to get inspiration sometimes, or putting too many good ideas into a script and not knowing where to stop, versus this movie came together so easy because we knew all the locations and all the people that was going to be in it.
Yeah, I always say from a good place in a good pace. This movie came from a good place and was made in a good pace.
else we see. Why don't you close your eyes? You can't fool me. You can't hurt me. Try to crush me, but you won't. No, you won't. It's just a dream, nothing but a dream. 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 Just dream on.
Which would bring us, I suppose, to post-production. How, with your editor, and let me just see, Matteo,
Mhm.
did you just hand off the footage and go, okay, let's see what you can do for a cut, or were you very involved with every aspect of the edit?
I've worked with Matteo. We both went to the same film school together, so I sat with him every day, and you were
Well, I
actually
think
there
it was a
quite a
little bit
lot
of
as
both.
well.
Like first, we wanted him to like just like get to know.
Oh yeah,
the
he did a
footage.
first
Yeah.
editor's cut.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
2 weeks, 2 weeks editor's cut.
And
Yeah.
I think it was longer, but you know, we also wanted him to like really get to know we had a lot of footage, a lot of improvisation. So he spent a lot of good time with it. He got to know the world, and you know, he put together a cut, and then we started working together from there. And yeah, I mean, you worked mostly with him.
It was the post-production process took longer than we expected, just because we had a lot of good footage. I mean, we had a cut that I was very happy with at 3 hours, which always which Andrea, thank God, made me cut down. But you know, then going back to like 2 hours and 20 minutes, it was floating pretty well, and then we kind of said like let's just. We also did a couple of kind of like screenings among friends, and anytime we saw somebody a little distracted, we knew this needed to be chopped down a little bit, you know. So a little bit of trial and error, and feeling it out. It was also it's a big luxury now with the new editing systems that you can literally, we had one in our bedroom that you can just take the time to get it right, I suppose. I mean, especially in our situation, we didn't have a release date set.
Well, I also think because because of the fact that we did have a lot of improvisation, it was very hard to pick because there was so much gold in there as well.
Yeah.
And you couldn't pick all of it because it was the same scene. So we had to pick which take, but could be completely different, but great takes. And that was so tough, and that made it much harder in the post-production, because I think that's why we also had a hard time deciding which take in a lot of scenes and which joke and so forth.
I mean, there was because a lot of these guys, they've never, you know, some of the farmers and co-stars have never acted on camera in their lives before, so that's kind of also the beauty, I believe, or we believe in this movie, that there's like a lot of unpredicted moments from these guys that they brought to the table, which, you know, may have been scripted to a certain extent, but they just pushed that to a whole nother level, especially Rolf, who is just gold all the time. And we had just so many incredible moments with him.
But also Krister.
I mean, Krister,
like
the driver.
like
yeah.
all all
Yeah.
the actors really.
The driver is just ridiculous. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
pure talent, and I don't know why he's not a star in Sweden yet. And
Yeah.
but Krister, you will be. Mark my words.
Yeah,
But
well, he does have a
very good.
very comedic touch to him, and that's apparent from opening scene.
And
You
we
know,
met him in playing in a tragedy. We saw a theater play of him, witch burning tragedy, and he's a great dramatic kind of like almost like a Shakespearean actor with a and when you let him go off do comedy, he's incredible.
mhm. Yeah, some of the
Shit,
scenes with the sofa and stuff, I was just grinning because again, I've met the guy.
Oh, I got my monsters here. I'm getting attacked. Look at this.
She's gonna be in our next movie.
That's the hardest part, though. I mean, when we were editing down Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Mania, you can sit there and you can, okay, this is it. But I mean, if you wanted to, you could continue editing for 3 years to try to get it to where you want it. And at a certain point, it has to be, okay, this is it now. You have to cut it at a certain point and let the audiences decide. That's always a tough thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and
It's hard
I
to
you
make
know, I,
other
like
people
I say, I hope, Patrick, that you do a director's cut because, again, if it's a good story, I think audiences their sensibilities have changed a little. Where it used to be like 90 minutes, and now if you look at the average film out there, they're running, close to 2 hours or over 2 hours. So, it's in that
Yeah.
way, it's good for the filmmaker.
I mean, to be honest with,
Oh,
sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
To
I
be
was
honest
going to.
with you, this is, I mean, after all this time we spent on it, this is very much my director's cut, and I think this is the best movie. I do think, adding 2 or 3 scenes, it's not going to help the movie. The scenes themselves are cool and amazing, in my opinion, but I don't think they will enhance the moviegoer's experience as a whole. So what you're actually seeing very much is my director's cut. I'm not sad that these scenes didn't make the cut, and I'm not gonna pout and say
It's like,
this should make it. I'm very happy that these scenes exist, and I've lived with these long cuts for a long time. That I know this is the best this movie can be. Maybe I would like to add 10 seconds here or 5 seconds here, but then again, like this is the film, and this is my, I don't have. There's no grudge between us that she said this movie needs to be this time. This
Good.
what you're seeing is the cut.
Yeah.
So
I'm just. I'll just interrupt for a second here. I'm sensing a camaraderie with you two. Obviously, how did you two meet? This is going to shift gears completely. How did you two meet? How did you two begin collaborating?
Oh my God, that's also a long story. But let's put it this way: we met in New York. We fell in love. It's actually love at first.
It was instant.
It was
I mean,
instant.
It was really because we are filmmakers, so of course we're gonna tell our story and see it as a filmmaker would. And the thing is, like, it was truly and fully love at first sight. And when I turned around in this restaurant when we first met, when he walked into the door, it was like this moment you see in movies when we would look at each other.
Slow motion. Wind in my hair.
And
I was young.
It was almost like that. And then it was
you gotta go
very
that way.
And we started, like, we moved in together like almost instantly, and then we started writing together. I mean, basically
The first email you ever sent me was a short script. You have
you're right.
the crazy comedy
Yeah.
Ingrid the Panda,
Yeah, that's right.
which is an incredible short script, which we may do after all eventually. So we started kind of collaborating right away, and I was actually in very, very close to making another feature back then that never came to fruition after all. But you read it and you were like, this is never going to happen, and 2 months later she was right. And yes, then we kind of
But
6 years ago.
Yeah, but it took a long time for us to find
Over 6
our
years.
what is that called, like
Common ground.
common ground, because like we are very different people, and we finally, I feel like, have found our middle ground, and like how we can tell stories together in a cool way. But before that, in the beginning, I remember we were struggling a lot, with our egos, because I would be like, this is a great idea, and he would be like, no, it sucks, and then he would say, this is a great idea. I'm like, no, it sucks, and then we would get angry at each other instead of trying to like. But when we started listening to each other, I feel like we finally were able to get rid of each other's bad stuff and just bring in the good stuff. So yeah.
Good. Good. And well, it's good to have trust, and it's good to have a common ground when working together. I understand, and Andrea, is it?
Yes.
You did some work, Lee Strasberg Theater, and you did some studying there, which I think of Lee Strasberg. I think of Paul Newman, Jimmy Dean, all of these guys, that Marilyn Monroe, that all went there. What was that like to come from there? What did you think of that place?
Well, the thing was that so I did their two-year program. That is their full their full program they have. And the funny thing was, as we mentioned earlier, I've been a model for a long time, and modeling and acting, people think are two similar things, but they're actually the complete opposite of each other. Because when you're a model, everything, I must say, is very fake, and like you're selling a fake emotion, and everything is heightened, and you making faces to make yourself look good, especially in pictures and also in like commercials. And then I started at school thinking that, oh, I've been a model, I can probably act because it's in front of the camera. And I was so like surprised and destroyed the first month of the school, because I realized I was a terrible actress, or like I could not act at all. I did not have those tools that you need to act. I was so fake, and I was terrified of showing real emotion, especially in front of other people and on stage. And they just, my teachers, I had an amazing teacher there, Lola Cohen, and she just like, I guess I could say that she destroyed me and rebuilt me into what I am today. She like made me do things on stage that I like don't wish upon my worst enemy, but it also is so freeing, because when you're on stage, it's different than being on film too, because on stage there's an audience and people are looking at you. And everything you do is being judged. When you're in front of a camera, it's the camera and the director mostly that judges you, and maybe the crew, but it's different. When you're on stage, it's just like, if you don't speak, it's just silence and expectation and you. So I remember she made me sing on stage and look every person in the audience in the eyes for at least like 10 seconds. So I had to look every person in the audience in the eyes, singing as loud as I could. And I just cried after, because it was so mentally frustrating. But the thing is, when I finished school, I was not afraid of anything anymore. And it made me such a stronger person. Like, I am not afraid of anything. You can put me in any situation and I just deal with it now.
Would you do theater again? Would you do a play on stage again?
Definitely. Yeah, I would definitely do that. I actually miss it a little bit, because most of the work at Strasbourg was actually theater on stage. We did some acting for film as well. But it is special being on stage, because it's happening, as I said, now. It's now. There's no tomorrow or next take. It's happening in the moment, and it's a very special feeling also, playing a role through a whole theater piece,
Absolutely. I come from a theater background, and I've done many things in back of the stage as a director and as an actor on the stage, and I know that feeling of intimacy that you get when you walk out. It's just you. Everything closes down, and it's just you and the light and who's out there. And
exactly.
Hopefully there's somebody out there. It's dark, and it's just dark, and it's rehearsal. How about that? And and yeah, it's a special feeling, and I wish more actors today in film and even some directors and everything would get a feel for doing that type of performance, because it is amazingly different, and it can only enhance either section of your creative life.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree.
So Patrick, you did a number of short films prior to taking on the feature here.
Yeah.
Was it something you were really looking forward to after, getting your teeth into the short films and learning the process? And was it?
Oh yeah, trust me. I mean, making a feature is just such a beautiful. First of all, filmmaking is a collaborative experience, but making a feature is like taking the circus on the road. So, like I mentioned before, I was ready to do one 6 years before this one when Andrea and I met. But it was in Los Angeles with some dubious producers that are not around anymore. And
Or any other kind?
so here's a good one. But the beautiful and somewhat innocent thing about this one was kind of that there was no other cooks in the kitchen but the two of us, really. Obviously the ingredients were the amazing people that we put in the movie, but there was no other person that was kind of looking over our shoulder telling us what to do. This is very kind of like, this is Blood Paradise is very much our baby, and I'm very, very happy that it exists, and I'm very much aware how rare the opportunity was that we got making this movie. So I was ready, yes, and I'm very happy I did it with Andrea because she definitely it's our baby. it's 50% hers. It's actually 55% yours.
What do you like on the set, Patrick? What do you like? What kind of a director are you? What
Proper
do you do?
German, tyrannical.
Yeah.
Screaming at
Oh,
everybody.
you von Stroheim again? Are you coming out like that?
Wearing the boots.
Yeah. And look, do you have the writing crop too? Well, you kind of had that in that opening scene, so I thought,
I was wearing the latex suit the entire production.
Yes.
I do know that I'm only as good as my collaborators. I mean, they make me look good. So you have to ask Andrea how I am on set.
There's a question.
I hope I listen to the good ideas and diminish the bad ones.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, how I perceive you is that what I appreciate about you is that when you want something, or when you have a very clear vision about how you want it to look like and what you want, and you stick to it, even if I don't agree, or if I say it's not necessary, you're like really stubborn about it. And I really appreciate that now, especially when we went through post-production. I saw all the things that you like stood your ground on, and like that you stuck to your vision, I mean, you're actually, you also, I mean, in this film, you also let your actors do their thing, but you also, when you need to step in, you step in. I mean,
I think.
Do you storyboard? Do you storyboard a lot of it? Because Hitchcock used to do that.
Which is so funny that you asked me that question, because I literally, I think, storyboarded the entire movie beforehand. But when we came on set, especially if you have a certain kind of plan, especially with lenses and making it look a certain kind of way, but you have actors in front of you that have never acted in a movie before, you can't give them marks. Like that, it's impossible. It's impossible to give an untrained actor marks. So you kind of like literally that's actually a funny story I'm going to tell you guys now. I had storyboards and an entire shooting list before we made this movie. The first day of the set, I left my entire director's folder in quotes lying on a bench on the farm. And the next day, and that particular night, Andrea was like, "What is this stuff blowing all over the field? Like there's this road down by the lake, essentially, like where you see her running naked, one of those scenes." there was all these pages fluttering in the wind.
And
we're like,
we filmed
and
it.
I feel, yeah, we
It was
filmed
so
it.
Beautiful.
It looked so beautiful. It was like, you know, the northern lights above and these white pages flying. It was like, what is this? What happened there? And then the next day, her uncle, who is a farmer who lives across the street, came over with my director's folder, who had literally been blown across the field, down on the road. A semi truck has hit that thing and threw it on the field where the sheep were grazing. And he brought back this crumpled folder. All my storyboards were, you know, non-existent anymore. And we kind of, after that, just
digital?
took it as it came. I mean, we kind of knew what we were doing, but at the same time, with there was 75% of these people had never acted on film before, so you know, I knew kind of how I wanted to do it, but
you had it already. It was all in your head still. I mean,
the storyboards were maybe still in the head
for so long, but
we didn't use them.
Yeah, but you still, you know, knew what you wanted. I never felt you didn't know what you wanted. You always knew what you wanted.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think once, you know, I mean, especially as one of the, you know, the writer, the director, you know, you have it in your mind picturing how that line should be delivered to get the maximum effect, sort of, you know, for laughs or, you know, the way you would like to see it, you know. And I think, you know, I mean, when I get struck with a script idea out of the blue, generally then it becomes that thought process. Okay, yeah, this would be this way, and you know. So did you find that were your shooting days ever kind of extended because you're dealing with first-time actors, or did you manage to stick to schedule pretty well?
I remember one of the last days inside the barn where Robin, Andrea's character, is trapped. I looked. I think it was the 28th of July.
The last shooting day.
One of the last shooting days. I looked to my side, and the sound guy is literally sleeping on the floor. It's 5 a.m. in the morning. We're still not done with the scene. The cinematographer has to go home to Germany, drive home to Germany the next day, and we're still shooting. So yes, we had to extend. Just we within that shooting schedule in Sweden, that was actually pretty tight. We could not extend it whatsoever, and I wish we could have. But it was 2 or 3, especially the last night was long. I mean, we didn't go to sleep until
I can say this,
the next morning.
We were very lucky that the sun set around like 11 p.m. because we were shooting until the light was gone every day and started very early. So the days were long, and especially in the end, because then we were a little bit behind. So the last 3 days were definitely, and most of those days were inside the barn, so we could shoot even longer. So we shot like, I mean, it was definitely late in the morning.
Yeah,
all of those days.
We would, if we would have paid overtime, we would have paid overtime big time.
Big time.
What was the last scene you shot?
The scene where in the baking house where, or in the barn where Andrea is trapped, and we don't want to give it away, I guess, but
don't give it away.
The crossbow scene.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She shoots the guy with the crossbow.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll edit that out.
Just say it's the crossbow scene.
Yeah.
That took a lot. I mean, you know, it's a very cramped space. There was a lot of coverage, a lot of just detailed stuff you need to get to tell the story, and you know, basically a guy getting shot with a crossbow in the chest. All that stuff just takes time.
I mean,
to
the
like
last
reset.
shot of that scene, which is one of the last shots of the movie, because then it's just down by the lake after and the sheep. But that was shot at like 6:30 in the morning. And we were all delirious. I mean, we were so high on Swedish coffee, like you have no clue. Like it was like somebody was coming with I don't even know who, maybe even myself, went to get like
you did it yourself.
Swedish cookies and coffee like every 3 hours because we just needed sugar and coffee. And by the end of it, I mean, it was just. And
I can't in this. I'm going to use this to thank your dad for being a trooper, because you know this was the first time on a movie set for for Rolf, the farmer, and he really like. I mean, he kept the atmosphere up and made everybody very, very happy and relaxed. Because I mean, people, you get grumpy if you it's 6 a.m. You've been shooting I don't know how many hours. People get agitated after a while, especially in a cramped space.
I mean, all these professional filmmakers, we were all kind of like delirious and like almost like I'm giving up, and my dad was just like keeping it all together and like making us like do it. I mean, he was fantastic.
Wow.
While wearing a dress.
Yeah.
That was my next question. How did he feel about that? I didn't want to give a plot point away, but how did he feel about getting into what he had to get into for his scenes?
Well, the thing is, like my dad, the reason I knew my dad could act is because he's basically a natural actor, as you probably see in the movie. Like he's very, my whole childhood was basically my dad telling me stories in different voices, and at birthday parties he would dress up as creepy characters, like one with a big hat, and like all the kids would be screaming. Like, it was kind of cute and funny, but it was also a little creepy. And he would do a lot of these type of acting, things when I was a kid. So I knew that he could act, but I wasn't sure that he was gonna put on the dress, because it's quite a lot to ask from your father to just do that. And I wasn't sure, but he's such I think he really, what I felt also making this movie is that my dad loves to act. He's so good at it, and he gets it, and he became that woman, and
don't say too much now.
He was speaking like as that character, and
I kind of like this.
yeah.
I know if my own daughter came to me, if my daughter said to me, "Hey, would you put on a dress and be shot in a film that'll be seen worldwide?" I mean, what else can you do? Yeah, sure, honey. I love you that much. Sure. Where do I sign?
Yep. Yeah. Make sure you get my size right this time, and I want the hemline low. Okay. I don't want to trip.
As long as it makes me thin. Vertical lines, please. Vertical lines.
Yeah, absolutely. And no heels either. So
he was still wearing his boots, by the way. No heels.
Oh yeah, that was because I was thinking, was he wearing some sort of a shoe? But I guess he wasn't. He was wearing the boots. So
well, that certainly sexies up. Yeah. So I recently watched a YouTube video where you spoke at a film festival. Tell us what your plans for the movie now are. Is it going to do the festival circuit? Is that what you're going to concentrate on for the next little while?
We're going to retire after this interview. The movie is being burned and locked away for 100 years.
But I mean, are you going to go? I mean, do you have a distributor at this time?
We are talking to a few at the moment. Actually, the interview that you saw was, and I want to thank publicly Laura Kern of Film Comment. She found this movie with us because we thought we were going to premiere the movie in Barcelona. We're going to screen it next at the Molins Film Festival in Barcelona, which is this incredible genre film festival, who this year are having a tribute to Brian De Palma, who ironically has been an influence on our movie. So we're happy to screen it in November at the Molins Film Festival in Spain. And then about 2 months ago, Laura Kern, who's a fantastic film writer from New York, found the movie and asked us to screen it at the Lincoln Film Society in New York. And that's where we actually had our premiere last month. Last month. And it was an incredible experience. That was the first time we actually saw the movie on a proper big screen. It was fantastic. I mean, one of the best theaters in New York. And yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and we also met a lot of people there, and it was really good for us to,
Yeah, because we didn't know, after we finished the film, that actually also made us finish the film number one, because we were, since we since we could have edited the movie for another 2 months before Barcelona. It was good that we just said, okay, this is it, we are finished. So we actually just got invited to the AFI theater in Washington to screen it in October, next October, right? Yeah, this it's coming up next month. Screen it there. That is literally just happened 2 days ago. So the next big thing that we're planning for is actually we got invited to go physically and personally to the Moulins Film Festival, and then we'll see. We got a couple of we're in talks with some distributors, and
but I definitely also want to do as many festivals as possible, because I think it's really great to be able to see your movie with an audience and meet people. And since we're first-time filmmakers, that is a big part of, the joy that you experience after you finish. You want to see it, with other people. Of course, now, like, distribution is important as well, but I don't think you will experience the movie the same way if you don't go to the festivals and you get to see it, with other people.
Yeah, seeing it especially on a really nice big screen with an audience. That's a pleasure,
That's what it's all about.
Eventually, all the great things are ending up on Netflix, right?
Yeah.
That's where we all headed.
So any plans for a Canadian distribution, or coming?
I want to show it in Canada. Please invite us. We will go anywhere. We're traveling circus folk.
We got a festival that's coming up pretty soon. I think it's the end of this month. You might try it for next year, or try to get yourself in. It's called the Festival of Fear. It's in Edmonton. Yeah.
Okay.
It's
about 3 hours from us.
3 days. Yeah, about 3 hours from us up the road.
Okay.
Do you guys know the programmers, and are they listening? Blood Paradise, take us.
Jim could. We could furnish that.
Certainly reach out. That's not a problem.
We can furnish that. Yeah.
I'm not unknown, but next to what's next to unknown?
Actually unknown, yes.
I can send you. Film Freeway would probably have a place where you can submit, and then
the Festival
I
of
could always
Fear.
put in a good word for you.
Yeah, it's Edmonton, Alberta. It's on, I think, October 27th. Well, it's coming up October 27th, but they do screenings, and I think it's fairly big. It's like 3 days of stuff that goes on, and it's all genre film. It's all basically, obviously, it's horror and thriller based. So
the timing is a bit unfortunate because Toronto just went by, and Calgary, I think, is our International Film Festival. It's done now, is it?
Yeah, it's still going now. I get emails from it.
Too late to submit.
And that's the same guy that programs that is the same guy that does the Toronto one, I think, or so the TIFF. But they don't send us stuff either. Like, I try to get TIFF to get involved, and all these people. Sorry, a brief tirade on my part. We get more support on filmmaking from European people than we do our own country.
Really?
And I don't know why.
It's easier for me to...
Cinema is alive and well in Europe still.
Well, isn't it also it's very hard to be
you can never be a superstar in your home country.
Well, there's an actor that we've interviewed on this program, and we're thinking about maybe planning a Canadian Bangkok production, because it's hard to, the economy being what it is, it's hard to find investment at this particular time. And I don't know, I know most of the EU's being hit by it, and we're getting hit by it, especially in our province that relies largely on oil. It's a tough go. The reason I was asking about distribution, of course, it's always, you're kind of stuck, because if you go the film festival route, the chances of theatrical go down. So, I mean, that's, part of the, I guess I was just asking what your release strategy was. But certainly what you
well,
said
we actually just got an email from a distributor who wanted to take on the movie, and we're actually, because if you do the theatrical round, especially for a movie like ours, sometimes they get the money from, like, let's say in our case, the Swedish Film Fund would put in 50% of the money that it takes to show the movie in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, if we're all honest among each other, most of the people watch the stuff on other platforms now. I mean, I was so happy when we are both so happy when Movie Pass came out in Los Angeles, because we literally went to the movies every other night, and apparently, I think the theaters still got the proper money for it, right? I mean, that's the whole thing.
They did it during that year, yeah.
During that year, so now all that is changing.
My question too on that is what's funding like? What's the climate like for money in Europe? North America is completely different. How was it for you for funding? And I also wonder too about, we all know about Brexit and the European Union. Is that going to affect some of this movement and
all the money is going to Berlin.
It's true, actually.
That's not a.
The rumor is because they're leaving the EU, so the money must go back to the EU. All the EU money that we have, and a big part of it will most likely go to Germany, of course. So could be a good thing for us, I guess, since you're German. But still, it's hard also getting movies funded in Europe, because I feel like here it's a lot, what I've heard when we applied is it's a lot about like political messages, like they want very specific politically correct movies, and a certain way. They want to keep it like the way it's always been made, almost like if a country makes movies this way, they almost want to keep it that way. So it's hard to break out unless you're a famous filmmaker and you like want to try something different. Then the film fund would trust you. But it's it's hard getting money from anybody.
But actually the one thing that we also learned is that once you put the train on the road, or on the just head into the direction, there's a lot of people who are willing to jump on board once it's taken off. Yeah. Because I mean, the only reason why this movie even exists is that Andrea and I moved literally into a garage for a year and saved up all our cash to start making something. And once we said we're gonna make this no matter what, essentially making it, me shooting it on a small camera, other things happened rather quickly, because also everybody is afraid to miss out on something.
Yeah.
So I don't know who said it, probably Werner Herzog, money doesn't make movies. People make movies, and again, it depends on the movie, obviously. I mean, money does make Warner Brothers movies, but in this type of situation, and also for our next one, I mean, I hope we'll get a little bit help from the film funds. Mm-hmm. But if we won't, we'll still make it,
Yeah, well, it's funny because here in Canada, I mean, we've got our federal film fund and our provincial film fund that they totally just screwed with.
Yeah.
And it's much the same as I think.
What do you really think?
Well, no, I mean, they disregard anything that isn't mainstream. So if I actually wanted to get money, I'm thinking of writing a script about Inuit lesbians who are overcoming drug addictions. And if you did that, you'd probably, that's a Canadian dandy here,
We'll have to get Lars von Trier to produce it or something,
Yeah.
And
Lars
put it in a
von Trier,
hospital.
Inuit lesbians? I love that idea, actually.
And he'll put it in a hospital, or something. So.
Yeah, in a 1920s setting. Yeah.
Yes, actually, they've done that. Butterbox Babies was one. but that's a totally different story.
Is that true?
It's true. No, there's a film, and actually, it's a very tragic story about children that were put in boxes, butter boxes, and left on the street. And it's a very tragic story, and it's about orphans. And
Does
it
it
was
have a
called The
happy-
Butterbox
does it-
Babies.
Does it have a happy
It wasn't a
ending?
horror film. No, it was a part of our history. So, and it's
Does it have a happy ending?
no, it didn't. Apparently, but this was somebody did a film about that a long time ago. And
Yeah. If it was
one of our-
Hollywood, if it was LA based, they'd have a happy ending.
Always.
It would be, yeah.
yeah, it'd be margarine or something, you know. Like,
No, it's, you know, they all find love.
Kale boxes.
we got dairy problems in this country, so we can't have butterbox now. So
We're giving you gold here, viewers. We're giving you gold.
yeah, we're giving you gold. Yeah. Canadian, yeah. It's not just a program, it's an education.
Yeah. So, what's next? I mean, are you forming, not you, Terry.
You doing a sequel? You gonna do a sequel to this?
But yeah, Return to Blood Paradise.
Ain't happening.
Yeah.
we talked about. I mean, I'm all for Children of Blood Paradise, but I'll have to get it by this one. Yes.
I think I wouldn't be against making another Swedish film, but not anything that has to do with this one.
No Blood Paradise
No,
series.
I love this movie, but I'm done with it. I want to move on.
As a tie-in, you should do books, paperback books of the author writing.
Yeah, Robin's books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robin's
We
books.
have those.
Merchandising idea.
Merchandise. Yeah.
We were thinking about. We were joking.
We have all the covers. We have all the hard books.
Yeah.
I mean, all the props in the movie we still have, and we're willing to give them to a paying
Well, there's
audience.
some good titles.
Yeah.
there.
Go on an author tour, and by the way, you'll see this film about my life. This is how I wrote this book.
And everybody's naked.
Yeah.
Never
And
ends
you
with
sell the books. You sell the books, and they're empty. You know.
Dad,
just
we're
empty
going on a
pages.
book tour, and you're going to be in a
Empty
dress the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Sell the book, Dad. You know?
I'm trying to talk her father into coming to Barcelona and wearing the dress actually during the screening. So let's see what's going to happen.
What? Put some photos on Facebook.
I'm on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see.
Well, that's amazing. Well, I compliment you on doing the work that I saw on screen and talking with us and being so free with us. And you both did amazing work on this picture, Blood Paradise. And I sincerely hope it continues. And I'd love to see a longer version of it when you know, with all those arty shots that you were mentioning. I think it would be it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I congratulate you both on your achievement, your determination. I always say that anybody who completes a film, whether it be complete shite or whether it's, you know, a good film, an actual good film, you know, I mean, they're to be congratulated because, you know, it's an arduous process and it's long and, you know, it takes up a certain amount of your life and you have every reason to be proud of what you've achieved. So tell us a bit where people can find you if they want to follow what's happening with the film.
Yeah. Well.
Web addresses, Twitter, all that.
Yeah.
You say address again, Jim?
Come to Germany. We'll give you our address.
Actually, I'd love to. That's one of my bucket trips is Hamburg. And
Is it really?
So
Yeah.
let us know
We
when
just
you-
arrived here 2 weeks ago. It's fucking
I'm-
dark and windy and rainy.
I'm going the other direction. Next week I'm in Mexico City. So
Oh,
and so I'm going the other it's a little bit far, but it's one of my bucket trips. I wanted to go and see the German playground, so to speak. So
Yeah, I mean, we're going to be here for about 4 or 5 months, I think, or maybe 6
longer,
months,
we'll
maybe a little
see.
bit longer, about 6 months. So if you
Let us
make it down
know.
here, please, we'll take you out for a good bierchen.
oh boy, apparently I've got good taste here, and I taste good. So look at me. No, but where can viewers that are watching this program, where can they see this film right now if they say I want to see Blood Paradise?
You can't actually. You would have to come to one of the festivals. You can't see the full movie yet,
Okay.
but you can see the trailer and you can follow us and
Yeah, we have
Just wait for it.
I mean, it's
Okay.
you know.
Bloodparadise.com is the website, right?
Yes.
Blood Paradise Movie on Facebook.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
And Instagram.
I'm old. I'm not used to all this.
You're
social
not that
media
old.
thing.
You're
Having
a
a
puppy. Jeez.
having
Ed-
an old person, having an old person's moment. You know?
Yeah, you don't know who you're talking to here. You know, you're young, believe me.
I'm actually I have no legs. I'm a torso. I'm just.
You're talking to a flying head here. At Von Barkenberg on Twitter. That's my last name. At Von Barkenberg on Twitter. Instagram is Blood Paradise Movie. At Blood Paradise Movie, that is. Right. And my last name on Instagram at Von Barkenberg. And then you go ahead.
I
please.
think if you search for Blood Paradise, you'll find us somewhere
Just
there.
Google Blood Paradise. I mean, all this.
Okay.
Because under the screen here will be all these web addresses and things like that. And then I'm going to put one on there that says just Google Blood Paradise. I'll put that.
Yeah.
Yes, you
Just
silly
make it
Billy.
simple.
You. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know it's.
Bloodparadise.com is, I think, the best address that you can actually go to.
Yeah,
Of
that's
all these ads,
you will find
go to
what you need
bloodparadise.com.
at Blood Paradise.
Yeah.
Okay. And we will, on our next episode, be discussing the film. And if there's anything that you wish to announce, just send me a message, and we'll make sure it goes up on the Cine site and future episodes, and we'll help promote you as best we can. As an independent filmmaker myself, I love to promote good independent film. So I'm very pleased that you sent us the screener, and
And throw our name out too if you know anybody that we could chat with, and on this same basis, and take a look at some of their stuff. By all means, send them our way, and we will send you our greetings and thanks.
Guys,
Sounds good.
First of all, thank you so much for watching the film.
Yeah.
I find it amazing that 82 minutes of somebody's life that anybody puts up with our pipe dreams. I'm forever grateful that you guys put in the time and even the time talking to us. I mean, this it's all our lifetimes after all. So thank you for your kind words and your support. I really appreciate it, and we will put out the good word for sure.
Okay.
Thank you. It's all we can hope. Everybody has to support each other, and we're all in this for our one big happy family.
That's true. Independent filmmakers.
Fighting the good fight.
fighting for.
Okay, well, Andrea, Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope we can do this again.
Yeah.
We hope so too. Thank you so much for having us.
100%.
Okay.
Next year.
Bye.
Yeah.
All right,
Sequel.
take care.
Blood Paradise. Thank you, guys.